I believe those are more relevant today. But the methods, of course, will have to change. I am suggesting let us recontextualize Gandhi, have the courage to re-examine the methods, but not go and deny the criticality and the importance of the message. And I think that's where I stand. Now, a lot of what Sam is saying, I tend to subscribe. Ultimately, it's about what you stand for philosophically. I believe that the problem in India today is we have no philosophical stand, good or bad. I think it is all expediency, and that is our problem. I have no problem if you say, I'm going to be like Israel, I'm going to shoot them. If they kill 5 people, I'll go and kill 500. I have no problem with it. At least there's a philosophical stand. What is our philosophical stand? Nothing. It's neither non-violence. In other words, impotence is not non-violence. I think non-violence is a powerful state that comes from tremendous internal strength that people can respect because it's consistent. But if you talk about non-violence when it's convenient and violence when it's convenient, you have no respect anywhere in the world. I say be one or the other. Don't be totally dependent on your impotence at the point in time. And I think that's where we are. We talk about corruption, we are corrupt. We talk about poverty alleviation, we have more poor people than the entire population of India.
I think to some extent it's called split level consciousness. We wind up saying people what is comfortable. It's like, someone comes to your office and says, "Saab, ho jayega sab." Doesn't mean a damn thing. It's not going to happen. He just says it because that's what you want to hear. He turns around and does exactly opposite. And he's very comfortable. That's the problem.
Gandhi himself, of course, said that if he was presented with a choice between cowardice and violence, he would choose violence.
Exactly.
And let me just mention one point of agreement and one point of disagreement with Shashi, just to spice things up, and then invite those of you who want to ask questions or make comments to come up to one of the 2 microphones. The point of agreement is that you were absolutely right about Attenborough's film Gandhi. He wanted, in fact, to convey a message to South Africa that apartheid could be ended through Gandhian non-violence. And that is why you have so many of the historical inaccuracies in the film. And in fact, if you look at the history of the anti-apartheid struggle, it had both a non-violent strand and a violent strand, as we did in our own independence movement. And that's why, when Nelson Mandela first came to India, he expressed great respect for Mahatma Gandhi, but then he said that it was Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose who was the hero of the African youth because of the armed struggle dimension of, trying to win freedom. So there I agree that sometimes, Gandhi is reinterpreted beyond recognition. So there I would concede your point. But the second point where I would still disagree with you is on your interpretation of partition. To my mind, religious faith had nothing at all to do with partition. It was all about political power, and religious communities were pitted against one another. And in fact, I really don't think that ultimately Jinnah and the Muslim League brought about the kind of partition that took place. In the end, it was Gandhi's erstwhile followers, including Jawaharlal Nehru, who elbowed him aside, who would not listen to Mahatma Gandhi. They wanted power at the helm of a centralized state, even if it meant paying the price of partition, including the partition of Punjab and Bengal. So, I would still make a distinction there between religious gain and religious community. But let's bring, particularly, we want young people to come up and ask questions, and don't be shy at all, and just express yourselves. It would be, yes, please go ahead. It would be helpful if you could go to that microphone, or if there is a roving mic, everybody would be able to hear you.
But it's self-perception.
I know that there are young people from 30 different countries in this room, and we want to hear your voices, and we want some gender balance when it comes to questioners.
Thank you very much. We spoke much about basic values to a point that we converted everything into basic elements. And if that's the way we really like Gandhi to be seen going forward, we have bigger examples a couple of thousand years before Gandhi. We have Gautam Buddha to talk about.
Sure.
Spoke no different.
Sure.
We have Pope Ratzinger, brought in 4 more original sins to his list of 7 original sins, who's talking no different. I thought what was unique about Gandhi is really particularly the methods that he used to force, and I quite like a word Professor used of Gandhi's is cunning. Cunning or not, but he was able to use the right language to get everything put together. So if I had to learn and pass on to the next generation, is not the virtue that he preached, but lots of the methods that he used to achieve the cause that he set out to achieve. Any answer, particularly from Mr. Tharoor?
Yeah, I agree. I think what you're saying is that the methods are fundamental to an assessment of Gandhiji's relevance, and I'm totally in agreement with you. Method and context. I think, as I said, I mean, I didn't actually disagree with Sam and CK. My problem was that by taking those elements that they did out of Gandhi, they made argument essentially impossible. At the level of truth and simplicity and goodness and so on, there is no argument. So if you take the historical Gandhi, what he stood for, what he wrote, what he said, his specific advocacy of certain methods and techniques, that's the Gandhi whose relevance we have to test today. And that Gandhi, I argued, sadly, is not relevant. I wish he were, but he isn't.
Actually, I would like to go the exact opposite of what that gentleman just said. Don't you think, you said Gandhi, Mr. Tharoor, you said Gandhi is no longer relevant in modern day, but don't you think you were thinking more along the lines of his method was no longer relevant?
Mm-hmm.
But then we can say that, for example, in industry, methods which were used by Taylor, scientific management, that's no longer relevant now. But don't you think it's the idea and the concept of someone who stood for something like what is right and what is wrong? Okay, what is right now? Maybe we can't use non-violence. But does that mean it's not right for us to defend our own borders and our own country? Just because we use more violent methods, it's still on lines of truth. So it's rather the idea of Gandhi and the concept of Gandhi rather than the method he used, which is relevant now, don't you think?
Absolutely, but are those, as the first questioner said, are those ideas exclusive to Gandhi? See, those ideas, in and of themselves, are ideas in many ways that are timeless. Buddha, Christ, St. Augustine, whatever, you can go back to whichever culture you wish. It's the ideas and those beliefs taken and applied through certain methods in a particular historical context that gave us what we can call Gandhism. And sadly, those things, I feel, cannot be applied today. But I'm not, as I said also in my remarks, I admire Gandhiji hugely. A lot of his precepts I myself quote. I mean, be the change has been one of my favorite lines forever. I mean, working at the UN, it was a message I constantly gave, not just to outsiders, but to the UN itself. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Embody these things. And Gandhiji's lesson of means and ends, that you cannot fulfill ideal ends through unjust means. You cannot pursue truth through untruth, which is also Sam's point when he talked about you want to get richer by being a crook, then your richness means nothing. All of these are very fine and valid principles, and at that level, of course, they remain relevant for all time. But then, in a sense, one could argue they were relevant before Gandhiji too.
But that does not diminish just because they were relevant before, that does not diminish his impact on that, don't you think? It is not, just because someone said it earlier, he brought it to a more modern, at that point in time, a more modern state. It was relevant earlier, does not diminish the impact that he made on it.
Those principles are not diminished in their application. So if you sort of sat down and went through all of Gandhiji's teachings and writings and speeches and methods and the actual practice of his life, and you distilled, let's say, 100 different principles or precepts, I suspect maybe 70 or 80 of them would still be applicable now and timelessly. So then you have to ask yourself, what is Gandhism? Because if it's only those things that any one of us can certainly point to with admiration, then fine, there is no argument. But if Gandhism is also the method of non-violence, the shaming of one's opponent by his own brutalization, the infliction of suffering upon oneself to show the depth of one's convictions and the pursuit of truth, all of these things, as indeed this business of village self-sufficiency, I respectfully disagree with Sam. I don't think that Gandhiji would have been sitting with a computer today. I think, in fact, he would have been leading those people who protested outside the LIC when life insurance first brought them